Okay, hi to everyone. So let's start the stream. I have two MTTs here and started couple SNG also. See how it. Okay, it changed the position to outside of the screen here. Kind of a tricky spot on the MTT because I don't have any idea about this guy. If this was suited or like Queen Jack 10 suited, I would call here, but I think we can let go of that one. I don't think it's horrible to call, but there is definitely some issues if this guy happens to be on the tighter side. We can be relatively easily dominated. So I mean I'm still open racing from the UTC. Well, he's pre-betting me, so I tend to give some respect to it. Anyway. In here I open raised. Actually flop went checked. I didn't really think about it even. But we spiked the jack here and now we have two pairs. I think we can go for thin. Small raise here. If he shoves over we can still fold. Well, that was unlucky. Unlucky run out. Unlucky run out against 3x. I think we can defend or fold jack 8. It's probably not a big deal either way. Pretty unfortunate that we spiked the two pairs here. I mean, yeah, we can just flat as well, but I just think that we are still so often good here that we can raise and then fold if he shoves. Especially against someone that is, well, most of the time people are unknown in this site, but basically always the chances in this site that will then is going to be somewhat fizzy, is going to be higher. But yeah, pretty unfortunate turn river combo when he actually had flopped two pairs. Nine 10, pretty much the bottom of my open raising range here from the offsuit hands. Of course, suited stuff we can open quite a bit wider, but I wouldn't really open usually weaker offsuit, and this is pretty good flop to see that we have some backdoors and really try flop on the table one. I don't see too much point in c betting because we don't usually get any better hand to fold. I mean, all the AX have the guts and at least two overcards, so I think we can just go for check, and if we improve, then probably value bet most of the time. But again here, of course we can represent the AX, but it doesn't really make that much sense when we have pretty much almost enough high hand. So, and he was the one with the ace anyway, which is of course always decent possibility. He should be checking, I think. I mean, I have so many AXs in my range as well here that it doesn't make too much sense for him to be betting that many hands. And pretty happily going to be stacking off obviously with the queens here. Let's use the zoom function when we have one. And it seems to be the flip situation more or less. Well, it's not actually flip, but it's practical flip. I think I'm like 56% favorite or something like that. Standard defend. And yeah, I will be bluffing here. We have a lot of, well, not a lot of, but some 5x's, still way more than Willen usually has. We can also have any set here, some 2 pairs. So it's pretty reasonable that we bluff with the flush draw and no showdown value pretty much. King Jack, I think we can flat here, but other option is to also go for like 3-bet. And one of the good things about that is that we put Willen in tough position with most of his range, and we have nice blockers in our hand. Well, this is what happens pretty often when we make that. If he 4-bets, we can pretty happily fold in general, unless it's like min 4-bet or something. Something like that. I would kind of like that when you use that function that it would keep the tables in the positions they are roughly. That's actually an idea that I suppose I could send to Unibet. But it seems like 25 euro SNGs are not starting currently, so start 10 euro. Ace-9 on the bottom left. Obviously open raising. I mean, we have quite a strong Ace-10 shooter against 2.5 pp. I think I've just fold here, but calling would be somewhat reasonable also. And yeah, I will just fold Ace-9. I don't like to usually do that much of 3-bets with those. Well, Ace-9 off is ace that start to be on the reasonable area. Reasonable area to make the like 3-bet, but I prefer to use the suited aces and some other pro play combos and some suited connectors and such. General. Top left, we can c-bet, but I think checking is also fine. Problem of c-betting is just that if we face check raise, it's always going to be very awkward situation overall. We kind of have to continue, but it's always going to be quite tough situation. But once he checks second time, we have the best hand almost always, and can quite happily go for a bet on at least on blank river. So if you have anything to comment, ask, talk about, give any feedback or whatever, use the YouTube chat. And 2 big hands here on the top left. Well lane draw for Royal Flush here. We can check call on the top left. We have some showdown value and senses to improve. On the MTT, we have kind of a nice hand. We can also go for raise here. Call or raise are both reasonable. But yeah, well, now he again min bet, so 9 is kind of awkward. We can't really be like value raising anymore with 10x, obviously, if we had one, so, but with this price I think I still have a call. If he makes min bet again, obviously I have to call. If it makes it bigger, then it's yeah, I think we have to fold here probably. We can still have some flushes, some better hands. And the classical limp action. On the bottom right, there's pretty much no point in raising overall. And unfortunately, we don't get the flop. And we have 4 straight on the board, so there is no point in value betting really. It would be too thin in general, but this is pretty reasonable hand to bluff catch if he bets the river. Okay, we have add-on possibility on the MTT. Kind of interesting spot here. It has gone check, 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 all street, so I think they might sometimes have weak flush, but we obviously can't win if we check. We can maximally split the pot, so I decided to turn the hand into bluff. Obviously, if my 2 pairs didn't counterfeit by the board, I would just check here to showdown happily with 2 pairs, but decided to add it. I mean, when we make it almost pot size, I think we can even get some weak flushes to fold usually. We are still betting against 2 people. It depends, some people of course are going to call. Some might be folding. And of course it's a situation where we actually rarely have a really big flush, but at the same time it doesn't mean that we don't have value combos that we couldn't bet like that, because it's very unlikely that we'll less have big flushes either, so we can make the big bet with mediocre flush combos for value. And this is pretty crappy flop overall on the top bottom right. Bottom right here. So this tournament is on the break, but this one isn't. Okay. There seems to be some sort of exceptions for the break, I suppose. And yeah, we have ace-jack high here, so I'm not turning this one into bluff. We could get some 1 pair hands to fold by betting, but it's simply too strong of hand to be in general bluffing with. And on the outside table, we actually have kind of interesting spot here. I open raise, 2 people called. it was checks to me. I decided to c-bet because I have such a high equity that I can definitely stack off, obviously. But also, when it's three-way pot, I mean, the likelihood that my hand stays the best on the turn will decrease against two people, and obviously with the nuts we are pretty happy to call, and no idea what that guy is doing here. That hand should have ended on the flop, but for some weird reason it didn't. This is going to be a bit outside of the NAS, but okay, well, huge amount of outs here. But yeah, I don't think it's absurd to shout here against most people. And interesting spot here. I mean, we can have some sets, but do we want to? We have such a strong draw. Obviously, we can't fold, but well, I think I just go for observation, stack off. And yeah, he's not going to fold over pair most likely, but something weaker probably will be folding. So we check 2 trees here. I think I have to call pretty much, or this is so high on my range that it's almost mandatory call. Almost mandatory call. And it's a quite nice hand overall here on the bottom left, because we can't really have weaker hand for showdown value, and we still have a lot of equity, so if we don't semi-bluff that hand, then we probably don't semi-bluff too much. Of course we can have like call that hand, check raise as bluff with some gutsshot type of hand that we can still let go if we'll lend 3 bets, but I think it's totally fine to have tapped 1 here. And our steal doesn't work. And again we have interesting looking spots. I limp call pre-flop. 9-10 is going to be strong enough that I open raise. I have to call against the small blind toe if he does shove. So I was trying to check raise on the flop, but he didn't see, but definitely checking back here with the bottom pair, really coordinated board, and king 10 is snap call, and we run into better one. And usually I wouldn't open raise, but this one I was sitting out, so I decided to go for it. And no point to bet here, it would be too thin. He can definitely have 8x, 9x, and he might make check call sometimes with those, so it's really tough to get call from the weaker. In here, I mean, we don't get better hand to fold, but at the same time we have best hand relatively often. We can get a lot of equity to fold by betting, and we can still improve like that. And now we actually have the nuts pretty much, or practical nuts. So let's bet over half pot. If he calls, we can then shove the river, unless it's some spade or something. Then it would be a bit awkward, but this is practical, pretty much the blank one, so happy to shove that one. But unfortunately he doesn't call. And this guy is practically shoving here, so this is something to always, should be something that you want to always take into or notice, that what is the effective stack, because it can be easy to check that, okay, it's 3x open raise, I don't want to call, and then just fold it. On the top left, this guy is actually second in the chips. This is pretty decent spot to be open shoving, this sort of holding. Well, spade was unfortunate on the bottom left, but I think I still have to shove here because I have less than pot size. Less than pot size, so we still have 10 outs, basically almost always, even if they are ahead. But once there is no snap call, we are most likely good. And king 4 is definitely something we can open shove profitably. Unfortunately running into better hand, but if we check from the NAS, it would be even 20 plus deep to shove. Of course we can limp as well, but I don't love idea to limp fold either that much. King 10, there is 2000 on the pot, there is decent chance that we get the pot down by shoving, so I think I will go for the shove. Sometimes we will run into trap, obviously, maybe that is the time. Unfortunately he's also dominating us, but I think it's reasonable spot. There is so much on the pot compared to effective stack depth. And small blind is going to fold like almost always. We can obviously check as well, but... And on the this is actually kind of interesting because we are pretty deep against the small blind, but I don't really like to just call. I think I will go for the sort of min 3, but it should be working as nice I saw. Well, we lost that one as well. I'm just a bit worried that if I just call it here, this guy is going to call almost always, and not necessarily something we want to happen. On the top left, this guy has been folding quite a lot against my min raises, so I will min raise fold this ace deuce. Sometimes I would also open limp. I don't really like. Yeah, you can open shove it profitably as well, but I think it's a bit tricky in a way. That it's not going to be like super profitable overall. And basically, if you are calling calls, you are almost always going to be dominated. So not such a great deal. Well, once he didn't 3-bet, of course he can have some AXs, but our hand is almost always the best here. So definitely C-betting. And 7-6 will be open shove on the bottom left. Like if you take the antes into account, it's basically like almost 900 big blind. That is actually kind of interesting spot in the bottom left. Okay, now we shove, but if it's open folded to me, if we are against decent players, we should be just shoving, but if we know that the players behind are fishy, then min raising is definitely option as well. Interesting board run on the top left. I think it's more easy for me to have the 8x, so I will try to get him to fold the split pot straight on the board. If he had shoved here, I would just fold because most of the time we would be against. I think against this sizing I will be calling again here, and actually on this river we also block the draws, so I think I will don't shove here. Because I think he might be checking back a lot of queen x if I check myself. On the top left, basically our hand is relatively often good, but problem is that we are not going to improve that often, but I think I will still call it here with the plan to fold if he continues to barrel. And ace queen is obviously raise called here. And we were ahead and he didn't really have any reasonable draw, but hit one of his 6 outs. Jack 7 is a bit too weak that I would want to be limp calling, so I will just fold it here. On the bottom right we have best hand very often, but also pretty vulnerable. So definitely betting. We got the 25 euro started. I'm just wondering that is this the same tournament that was on the break earlier as well? Well, who knows? On the top left, I would expect that King X, Queen X would value bet really often, so let's bet here, and bottom right we can get value from quite a few weaker hands, and mainly planning to check behind. I mean, we have quite a weak top pair, so I think readless we don't want to go for 3 street necessarily. It's quite that weak of top pair. Wow, that was weird hand. Weird hand of the outs table. And obviously shoving this guy has been win raising also pretty high frequency. And king 9. This is one of kind of a borderline hands if the villain had sharp pre-flop. And can we get weaker hand to call? I think we kind of have the value bet here, but hopefully we don't face. Hopefully we don't face check raise. I decided to pot control on the top left because I think getting 3 street from weaker hand is going to be quite rare, and this way we can get him to bluff sometimes, not lose maximum against the 4x. And queen jack, readless, I will be just shoving it here. Of course the issue in a way is that we might not get that many weaker hands to limp call, but at the same time it's quite a big pot to take down here and not give equity to all sort of hands. And this would be quite reasonable shoving hand on the top left also, but it would be also second time in a row that I shove, so let's this time check. And on the top left, I would expect villain to value bet again if he has the king x, so we can look for check shove here with the flush and huge setup on the bottom right. And 7-8 suited we could open shove or limp, but as default without high aggro opponent I personally prefer limping. And on the top left I think 9-6 suited is going to be quite profitable to open shove. We can limp fold as well, but again a bit too strong of a hand to be folded in my opinion. And on the MTT seems like we are stacking off here, so it's a bit worrisome how he plays that hand. Well, those min 3 bets of doom, so to say. So he min don't bet on the flop, I raise and he min 3 bets. But I can't really get away from it anymore. And we have the 8, but it's pretty tough to think also the 2's paired, so I don't really know what hand we could be beating here overall. That would also check the, and obviously bet calling here on the top left. And yeah, in the MTT hand will lane, I think, yeah, he limped, I raised 3x, he called, and that's how it went. Pretty unfortunate flop that he hit the top 2 and I hit the top pair. We could also check back on the bottom right, but I think readless we can go for bet on this blank card. There is still a lot of pair and draw hands that we can get value from. If he raises, we can happily fold, and that was pretty ugly looking card. We are probably going to lose, but okay, he was ahead anyway. But yeah, I don't see too much point in bluffing with the top pair, though I don't actually expect that much showdown value anyway, but probably still not hand we should be bluffing with. Well, here if this guy raises, we'll be shoving the ace-5. We can have bit of fold equity and also some weaker hand, like offsuit ace I would be folding, but I think shooter is just too strong. Don't expect much fold equity, but a little bit. You can have a little bit of it anyway. I haven't played much this month. Basically, around 2 weeks. We were picking berries here outside. We have quite a few. I think it's almost 50 buses of. I don't remember the English word anymore. It was something like. Well, it's turni in Finnish, but I think it was something like sipaktorn in English. Very nasty berries to pick up. Top size bet, but I think we still have to call with second pair and guts here. I would be folding like queen 5 or something like that without any draw. And yeah, I think trying to get better hand to fold is going to be somewhat tricky. We also don't have a plus blocker, so I think check folding is the best option. Well, pocket 8 we can definitely just flat here. We can also play a bit outside of set mining value. Oh, well, these bottom right situations are always so absurd. But yeah, I can't really call with that, I suppose. When he shoves like 6 times the pot. And this guy c-bet flop in 3-way pot, second barrel pick, and we don't really have possibility to improve, so. And we also block some of the plus draws he could be having, so that's pretty much mandatory fold. unless we just think that villain is going to spew off with all sort of stuff. Well, here the big blind would have a pretty nice shoving opportunity, but here flop couldn't be much drier, so we could even, well, let's go for a bit less than 1/3. And 5 shouldn't be connecting with his range that much, so I will be just looking to bet the turn and shove the river, and if we make it like 3000, it would be like 60-70% of the pot on the river. If we have some sort of read that villain loves to make float plays and bet against the check really often, then that would be a nice spot to be. Nice spot to be checking, but in general, villain should have like decent amount of a high hand that should be mainly checking back versus the check. So I don't, as default, see too much point for it. On the upper right, we have second pair no kicker, so let's strengthen our check back range, so that in this situation we have some clear call hands. And I don't really see, he could be sometimes value betting even some 8x or pocket jacks or something. Or bluffing, obviously. And this guy is making big donk bet. So just calling with our trips on the extremely dry flop. And we are pretty deep, so I think we kind of have to bet here to create the possibility to stack off. So kind of interesting, this guy calls. So overall villains haven't shown that much strength. And we also get bottom end gut shot. Well, I can't, this is down bad side of this line that I took. But yeah, I think I kind of have to call here anyway. With all the equity I have. And we get the idiot end straight, so hopefully it's enough for us. On the bottom left we can definitely call here. Pretty decent hand to play from position, but unfortunately we face all in here. Well, he had to mate flush. Well, 7-8 did complete. Of course, if he has the queen, he's not folding, but let's try to get something weaker. I think if we bet like a bit over half pot, we get queen X is not folding, but we get possibly weaker stuff to fold. I mean, if we try to fold out queen, we would need to like overbet the pot here, and maybe he's not folding anyway. With the queen. In here we only have the gut shot, no club in our hand, so not going to continue. Yeah, I think we should have the best hand really often. But again, getting action from weaker is going to be tough. And on the top left we can use some of these AXs that are not going to improve that often as c-bet hands, and try to deny some equity. And if we face like check raise, it's absolutely no problem. No problem situation. The MTT, we still need 123 players to drop out. So probably not going to happen in quite a long while. Quite weird looking line to donk bet again this sort of board, and I think I will go for, I wouldn't usually do this sort of play against any sort of reasonable player, but I've noticed that recreational players seems to be doing these plays with a lot of air hands, so these small raises tend to work decently well. And we have some backdoors to fall upon if he calls. And he folds. I'm not sure if we should continue with the king 4 here. I mean, it's only min bet, and he limps pre-flop, and we have king high backdoor flush draw. Well, if he min bets again, I will call, but yeah, not going to call that one. He might have flush, he might have sometimes like queen x that he was milking with the min bets. In here, well, I guess the open raise, well, we can shove. Yeah, I probably prefer shoving overall. It's a bit deep though, so it's not the most fist bump situation, but from the big blind I would definitely just call. And of course ace king wakes up the big blind. Standard stuff. And yeah, here we have only like 7 big blind with the antes. It's going to be fine to shove. And not the greatest hand to king 8 off to limp call, but when he uses 2.5 pp sizing, it's pretty cheap as well. And in here, obviously have to call in that spot. Interesting situation. I'm not actually sure how should I be playing the river here. Well, I don't know, let's shove. It probably has the best possibility that he gives value with something weaker. Though I would probably never bluff here, but that doesn't really matter that much. Okay, King Jack 8 will be connecting with the small blind range quite a lot. But obviously we can't be folding. Would be happy to check back here. Well. I don't know if we can be calling here. I mean, I don't really expect Queen X to have the Queen to have much of showdown value, and our chances to improve are quite small compared to price we get. And he min 3 bets. Well, let's see what the flop brings. Yeah, we are kind of committed to that pot. Oh, it wasn't. I somehow thought that it was all in, but well, anyway. It would have been better to shove the turn, obviously. He's kind of saying that he has the 10x and not much else, I suppose. Well, I actually clicked the call, but I ran out of the time. Well, I don't know. Maybe it was good or bad. Who knows? Who knows? Who knows? I mean, 10x or maybe set of 8s. I wouldn't expect him to check back 2 pair or set often at all. And not really value in betting, most likely here on the top left with the empty side, but you can give feedback on that almost cold hand. Well, ace 4 we can shove profitably, that's one option. I will go for limp. This guy has been quite aggro, I think, against the... So I was planning to limp shove if he goes. And on the top right, we definitely don't want to make much of light raises in that stack situation. And against bot size, I'm not going to float. I think on the bottom left with 2 overcards, some backdoor stuff, we kind of have to, and we could have the best hand also. So it would be a bit too weak to fold right away. And looks like possibly expensive turn. If he checks, I don't see too much point in betting. We won't get better hands to fold most of the time. And now we have the nuts, so let's actually hope that he had something. I'm not going to shove 4 high. It might be plus EV with 4 deuce, but folding should be pretty reasonable. And queen jack is kind of mandatory open shove. Can't find the out here. Yeah, I'm not going to call here. And pretty close to perfect flop on the top left. We could check back as well sometimes here, but it's kind of flop that I would be c-betting extremely often anyway. Also with the total air hand, so mainly c-betting that one. Limping, we are like 5 big blind deep. I don't really know about what. If he had shoved, I would call anyway, so I think I will just shove that one. I don't know, maybe he folds still, but he does, which is nice. And can't call with that. Ace-7 is kind of interesting. As default, I usually fold here with this stack setup, but we can also open raise. The problem is that we have to raise fold against both of the villains, which is kind of nasty. Well, nasty to fold that king queen, but we are 24 big blind deep, so even with the flat caller, dead money, most likely dead money. I don't think we can call it here. 8-9 is actually quite close one, but I don't think it's bad to shove either. And in here we don't really have like really short stacks, so I will be shoving here with the ace-4. Hopefully not running into anything. And on the bottom right, the turn is basically pretty blank, so we can continue value betting. Yeah, I think I prefer defending 10x, but it's close in this stack situation, in my opinion. And king deuce is too weak. On the bottom left here is some like 6 or 7 will give us some equity. Ace. Problem is that we don't have any equity ourselves, so yeah, I just give up here. Now does it make sense to bluff? Because when he checks it will decrease his x and 5x somewhat, so I think we can try to bluff some of the king high pocket 7s type of hands. Well, let's actually check here on the top left in that stack situation. And of course he bets big. This kind of awkward situation with the, because we probably can't really shove, but it's probably best to call, even though we don't really get like. This is weird spot because I really don't expect that this guy would play Jack X like this, so I mean, if he has 7x or something like that, we still have so much equity, and maybe he folds sometimes. Don't ask what is the logic of those plays or this play either that much, but yeah, who knows. I mean, yeah, like if he has like a7, we are still going to have 10 out, so it's going to be 40%. 40% equity. He doesn't 3-bet pre-flop, so it will be decreasing his like 9s plus pocket pairs. So yeah, I think it's fine. And I think we also had the backdoor, or did we have the backdoor? Yeah, backdoor plus draw. It doesn't matter too much, but it does give bit equity anyway. On the bottom right, I think I prefer checking because it's going to be thin to go for turn bet river. So let's give him possibility to bluff with something, and again a bit of pocket control, pot control. I would want to continue here, but we saw on the previous hand that this guy doesn't like to fold and he makes it pot size, so I suppose folding is the only possibility. Well, luckily it didn't pair the board. And it was checked here, so king queen is going to be best hand really often. And it's also a draw with board, so we want to size it decently big. And hopefully there is blank river and we can... Well, it's kind of a blank. Jesus, these players. Pair plus open-ended. I probably can't fold that one. Yeah, I think I will shove here. There is still a huge amount of busted draws. Or did I act too slow again? Or well, I suppose I did. Act faster. Well, I don't know, would he have called the ace queen or not, but he might have, even against the sum. I think I clicked the bet button before the timeout, but I suppose there was delay, so it didn't go through fast enough. Timing out while 4 or 5 tabling is kind of horrible. But yeah, when you explain what you are doing and so on, it's something that just tends to happen sometimes. And yeah, on the bottom left, I will be open raising. And this guy min raises. Is this the hand that we want to be? I think ace-9 is reasonable that we want to be 3-bet calling against his stack depth. Considering that we have some fold equity, or decent amount of fold equity anyway. I'm not shoving because we are almost 40 big blind deep against the big blind. And this is not like situation that I like to be if I don't like the situation if the button shoves, but I'm just going to be priced in at that point. Even if I may use smaller sizing, I don't really see that we could be 3-bet folding, but I think just folding would be a bit too weak as well, so it's likely the best option to go for that line. Obviously calling ace-5. Well, this guy has been in sit out now for some time, and we have to call here, considering that if this guy plays accordingly, our hand is going to be strong enough, considering that this big blind is sitting out. So, but unfortunately, the dominated hand gets rewarded. I will not usually shove ace-4, 10 big blind deep without antes, but we have small blinds sitting out on the upper right. And unfortunately we are running into better ace, and we didn't even split. Wow. Kind of interesting spot on the bottom right, because we can also check back for the showdown value. It's kind of questionable, do we get AX, or how many AXs we get to fold by betting. Interesting river card. We can put Queen X, Jack X into quite awkward spot. Of course, we don't have relevant blockers, so it has kind of downside, but I don't think it's horrible necessarily. Okay. Didn't work. I mean, when the 7 pairs on the turn, I would be checking back on the turn with a lot of draws. I'm not going to bet here for value or draw much at all. So I will have a lot of flushes, and King 10 is also in my range. Some AXs. So I think it's kind of reasonable range from the range view. Of course, the question is if that combo is necessarily one you want to be. I'm thinking about check raising the river with the not flush blocker, but against pot size bet. Yeah, I think I just folded here. Well, we sucked out here. Ace-2 suited, I will be shoving bottom left. Well, we are still beating most of the flop semi-bluffs. Well, 10 was crappy one. Well, might be bad call when villain is well betting that sort of hand on the turn, still for value. I mean, 7-6 bet. It's kind of a thin. Well, this time we got bluffed through. Well, I actually kind of forgot what happened here. I 3-bet. Yeah. I suppose it's kind of weak to be check folding. Would probably be better to check call or c-bet small. And ace king we have to call even against shove. And we won. That was great. I think I prefer betting here. We have the best hand relatively often and we can deny some equity from the villain. On the top left, I don't really want to be shoving or 3-bet folding, or 3-bet calling, so I think calling is the most reasonable option, even if it's not the greatest combo to be calling from the small blind overall. Now these guys get like huge hands all the time. On the bottom right we can open shove, but I think this is kind of more marginal hand for it, so I don't mind to be limping either. And queen 9, I will just go for check fold. Check fold, we have some showdown value, so I don't think it's necessarily hand we want to bluff with, but. And I think on the top right, from the position, king then suited is quite decent hand. Quite decent hand as well. We have the gut shot, but we have so many better hand combos to bluff overall with more equity. And on the bottom left we have showdown value with the king high, so I don't see too much point in betting. And this is actually a spot where we could consider value betting our king high. So I think it's extremely unlikely Billy has the better hand here. It's more likely, in my opinion at least, that he ends up hero calling like queen high or something. Make 10 suited. I think I will just go for open shove. Limping is totally fine as well, but it's just kind of nasty to be limp folding either against sizable bet. This guy went for min 3 bet, so I will be just calling here. I don't really want to be raising with crappy. And on the bottom right, I will actually go for shove here. If there was no flat caller, I probably wouldn't shove, but it will increase my risk reward. And ace 8, I don't love the situation, but I think it's too good to be folded. But it's like pretty much the weakest offsuit ace I would usually raise call. Min bet ship. Oh well. Well, I don't know how often I have better hand overall. What hand he would? Maybe some really strong hands that he don't need to protect. Yeah, I think I called here. Again, no idea what goes through that guy's mind. Like, why didn't he just min bet the river as well? I might have just called, I don't know. I will check back. I think again on the bottom right, going for 3 straight is going to be a pretty questionable attempt. And like if I bet and he check raises, it's going to be awkward. Pocket kings, we can go either way, shoving or calling. Shoving or calling are both totally fine. And of course, every time you call, well, not every time, but sometimes it feels like that there is going to be ace. Yeah, I think I still have to call here. No, it's not going to be that great. Yeah, well, end result would have been exactly same. Whatever about of the pre-flop line. Of course, you can argue, can we fold post-flop? Oh, well, 2 pairs, but I think we are going to be beat here extremely often. Of course, if he actually manages to bluff here, we are going to be kind of screwed up here, but I think there is just kind of situation that he's going to have a really strong range most of the time. I mean, I'd bet the turn and bet the river again in the 3-way, but this guy min 3 bets once again. And this time I'm just going to raise this for value. And in here we have two overcards, Katsot, and he sizes it quite small. Scary turn card, but we are in the three-way pot and we don't have that much. And let's just take the passive line. Pocket fours. I feel like this is kind of situation that we can go either way. It's not going to be huge problem either direction. 5-8. Wow. At least this guy brings surprises with his line choices. It might be good, but yeah, it's kind of nasty. Kind of nasty boards to hero, I suppose. Well, at least we didn't face shout here. One more diamond would have been nice. Well, he shoves on the flop. Kind of tricky to call because he's probably going to sip the river or something. But somehow I seem to be missing every flop against this guy. Don't really want to min raise after he makes that huge shove with the total crap. Well, let's try what he does. Didn't shove at least. And does the shove come in? Well, he probably now has some sort of weak pair, but well, we need to be good 1 out of 10 times. And I doubt he's going to fold much better hands to raise. don't have much though, so I don't know if this guy is going to fold against the bet either, but I think talk that he has been betting so much, so maybe he don't have anything often when he doesn't bet. But who knows. I think we can try to bet for sort of kind of blocker bet, even though the flush completed. Yeah, I'm just going to 3-bet shove. I think we can go for it for value. This guy min 3-bet. Well, I suppose we have to fold because we are so deep against the small blind. Oh well, 3-bet eats this guy's open raise, made for small c-bet. Tends to make it, we could check back of course on the flop, and of course it's some crappy flop on the heads up. And he min bets. We probably totally missed the board. But we can't really fold against the min bet either. Yeah, here cut the phrase call. We have pretty nice shoving spot overall. Well, let's this time go for check when we have a decent hand. Of course it's a high flop, so maybe he doesn't attack that one. Well, on the bottom left we have the best hand relatively often, so let's go for small value raise. And of course kind of scary looking line on that flop, but at the same time this is one of those guys that make some weird stuff also. Or he might have like some 6x or something for value also. And he had. But at the same time, I think we don't really want to 3-bet for value on the flop. necessarily. Let's go for value/protection bet on the bottom left. As we can see, this guy makes pretty interesting lines. Well, we have gutshots, but it's also pretty big sizing. Well, 6-4, we probably want to be shoving anyway. So hard to say if this guy is going to fold. Like if he's not folding anything, then it's going to be somewhat minus EV to some. Well, he woke up with the practical nuts. And really try flop. So is this SCB going to be folding anything? That's good question. Quite a marathon, heads up on the top left. (9-3) call against 10 big blind shove. Yep. So he has been bluffing with all sort of weirdo hands, and once he has open-ended straight draw on the flop with overcard, he doesn't bet that one. It's kind of ironic in my opinion. Kind of ironic. Let's make a bit of organizing on these tables. On the top left, if the villain had checked, it would have been pretty nice hand to start betting. I mean, sometimes you could also raise against the smaller bet, but when he makes it almost pot size, obviously I'm just folding. Unfortunately, we don't have king jack or queen jack. Can't really call with king high. And can't really call with king high. On the bottom right, it's kind of, you can call it, but it's also a pretty big flop c-bet, and we also didn't really have anything to support our 6 times the pot c-bet. Well, I would probably call this guy, but once this guy snap calls as well, we can't really stack off, probably. Well, river would have been pretty nice, pretty nice. I don't know about the bottom left, we could also check fold, but yeah, he might be betting all sort of stuff that he shouldn't, but I mean, check calling with the queen high is going to be kind of awkward option. Yeah, probably on the next shop trip, I should try to remember to buy the new mouse, because this one start to be a bit annoying with the button not always activating when you click. In here we have the gut shot and we don't block any of his semi-bluffs, so it's pretty reasonable hand to call, plus draw completes. Of course there is ton of busted straight draws, but there's no point in betting here. Like, if he has the queen, he's not folding it easily anyway, so. And we beat his straight draw type of bets, at least. On the top left, if it was folded, we could go for small raise or open limp, but once there is raise, shoving is the only reasonable option, pretty much. And on the bottom left, we can go either way. Shoving would be the last option I would usually do. Because 8 is still going to be playing pretty decently. Of course, this is one of the nastier board runs. And 9-7 suited, I think with these pot odds from the position we kind of need to call and get weak hit. I think 8-9 we can go for open shove, and against the min bets we are not holding. How tough it's make decent bet size. Can we be good? Well, it looks pretty value type of bet, obviously. We need to be ahead like 15% of time. And this time we are. That's the thing, like, even though I'm expecting to be behind really often here, there is still a so small need for the times that we are good. And now we have practical nuts, at least at this point. And it's board that quite easily hits people, so let's make half pot sizing. And hope there is no club, at least if someone calls. And then everyone snap folds, except big bottom. Quite surprising, 3 callers and no one continues on that board. Once again we have bluff catcher against this guy. Well, queen is quite crappy overall. And every time he has better hand. Well, maybe we should be just assuming that he's not bluffing often. And maybe start folding a bit more. Well, that would have been pretty nice flop for the ace-5, but I mean 3x open raise. Open raise, so price is not that good, and also 3-way pot, so not that great playability overall. Thinking about small 3-bet or shove. Let's just keep it simple and shove. And pocket jacks is not really hand you want to be slow play calling, because there is going to be overcard flops quite often. Unfortunately run into setup here on the 50 euro. And this guy makes absurdly big raise. We can obviously just call as well, but I think I just go for shove. He's probably not folding that much anymore. Limp calling king 7 off. Perhaps not something Villain should be doing on the top left. Well, here went my tips. Yeah. Again, limp calling from the hijack with the crappy offsuit king is not good idea. Exactly for reason that he run into here. Pretty easily dominated hand. Pocket tens, we only have like 10 big blinds, so let's open shove. Effective wise 10 big blind. King 9 is going to be fine open shove if the bottom folds, but he doesn't. So this is pretty fishy looking play when they make. Yeah, he has big hand. That's also one thing to note if he changes his sizing. So if this guy makes sometimes small, sometimes big, he probably has sizing tilt here. And Jack 9 we can ISO, so I'm pretty happy to, like if the big blind shove, we are going to take half big blind away anyway, and we want the wall tinked here. Can min raise on the, usually this mid stack holding quite a lot here. And king 3 we can actually open shove, put the maximum pressure on the mid stack, and against the big blind we would have to of course raise call anyway if we min raise. And king 9 is mandatory call. Let's try min raising how the villain reacts. Basically, if the villain is folding enough or like too much, then min raising basically most of your range is going to be favorable line overall. But if they are not folding much, then min raising heavy line is more, has its own problems. Nice hand on the 50 euro, but with this, well, we can limp, but usually I prefer not slow play these non-paired hands if I don't have a read that villain is going to be very aggressive against the limping overall. Nasty river. 6 on the turn, like almost sure victory, and then good time for the finish saying älä nuolaise ennen kuin tipahtaa. So don't be celebrating before the victory, so to say. Yeah, just shove the ace king. Jack 10 is going to be strong enough, but we can go actually for non-all-in play. Let's go with the win raised based play until he starts 3-betting. This guy min raises. Basically, we have to fold if we think that his range is trap heavy for this line, but if it's not, I think there is some point in just calling as well, because we have kind of a nice flop playability. Flop playability with the hand. 6-7 is kind of tricky hand to. Do we want to bluff it here? Well, let's go for it. The issue is that even if we hit the spade, it's not going to be that great of a flush. So, and maybe it's bad spot to bluff overall, because if the villain has like king high, he's going to have the guts up. So how likely is it that he folds that? And ace-10 we have to shove as small as stacked here. Also, at least this time he's min raising, not 3xing. Does it matter really is the question. Well, he had crap, or kind of crap, but he didn't want to fold. Nice for me this time at least. Ace-8, I think I go for shove. I think this beated Bozo is actually kind of tricky looking player, so you can probably put some pressure on him, and of course he wakes up with the. Of course he wakes up with that sort of hand. Let's go with the passive line. For a moment we were the biggest stack. Well, king 3 is strong enough here. And ace 2s as well. So again we can go for non-all-in. Fold. Thank you. And hopefully this guy folds. Great hand to open shove, but if he raises we can't really assume fold equity and have to fold. Well, we are free rolling flush almost. Oh well, nuts, but split pot. Kind of nasty. And we hit the 5, but that's not going to help here. Now would be nice to get Volk, but nope. This is again kind of stupid looking sizing spot overall. I was thinking about 4 betting here, 3 betting king jack, nice blockers, but can't really call against the open raise. Queen 3. Well, not really a hand I would have been happy to shove either. I think it's probably going to be maybe bit minus EV in the Nash. Call would be such a great spot for me if they collide. No matter, well, would have been better for this guy to win, but still my situation improved somewhat. A6 is strong enough to shove here, but let's hope for best. If this guy calls, we are going to be screwed most of the time. Oh well, hopefully this guy makes some stupid call or something. Oh well. Again, free rolling for the flush. I think his a6 call here is going to be bad. I mean, I'm not even shoving here with the crappy offsuit ace. And 7-5, I will just go for check raise here. And on the top left, big blind should be calling very close to any two. Kind of awkward turn card here. I think there is still value in betting. 4-8 is not strong enough. We can limp the pocket fours as well, but it's fine either way. Then jack will be call, but once he limps, this is kind of situation we're checking, because my assumption is that this is somewhat tricky player, so I will go for the check and not shove, because he might be trapping decent amount of time. And I mean, if I shove, he should never be limp calling with weaker hand. So it's kind of nice hand. And the thing is that then jack is not going to have that much showdown value. So even if we don't hit, it's not huge issue to fold jack high overall compared to like king 10 or something. Min raising queen 7. I think we probably have to call here. Oh, it's kind of close because the flop playability is not that great, but always awkward when you have like really short stack and it starts to give like, I think 10-5 suited I have to call, but let's say check the Nash, it's up to 5.2 pp, so yeah, I think it's reasonable call. And we are dominated out, but no luck. No luck. Open-ended straight draw on the flop. Well, happy to take the second place anyway. After that long bubble action, and we were short stack quite a long portion of that. We can call here with the gutsuit and huge amount of outs for the ace fourth here. We still have, of course, 4 is not going to be a huge blocker card, but I think this is actually kind of decent bluff catch hand overall. Again, I expect to be behind like 60% of time at least, but and those are always kind of tricky, like when he bets small, he is going to value bet, of course, very often, but like if you start to think that Willen is always value betting basically and start folding huge amount of time, then it's going to be very profitable for the Willen to make really small bluffs with that line as well. So you want to think usually in a way that do my hand block his possible bluffing hands? Does it block any value hands and so on? And here, of course, like I don't like 44 plus 4 of diamonds that we block like tiny bit of his flushes. I don't put that much value, but more to fact that I don't block any possible like straight draw hand that he could be bluffing with. That's the bigger deal for me here on deciding whatever to whatever to call or fold. On the bottom right we could try to limp that 9-5, but I'm not too eager usually to try to play that sort of hands when the stack distribution is this sort of. And on the bottom right I would have called against the small blind shove, even if it's not really that great situation, and it might actually be somewhat questionable from the profitability view, but I mean, if you start like open shoving 30 big blind here to not give a small blind the chance to 3-bet shove, then it's not going to be that great deal overall. Because he might, like, even if he 3-bets, he probably is going to be 3-bet folding more often than, or 3-betting smaller size than shoving, so you can tell forward. And in here I have check call twice and going to check shove. I mean, we only lose to pocket sevens, so of course it's going to end in the split pot almost always, but when he calls, but there is probably higher chance that he makes something stupid and bet calls with weaker full house or something. I will just check call here to keep some of the AXs in my checking range. And at the bottom left, I have to call if the big blind shove. Let's try to limp with the jack 10. But he raises pretty big. And this is pretty tight to fold, but I think I will still fold because I don't really want to get into big pot here. In here I defended against the 3-bet flop and turn. Went check, and I'm going to value bet that. River, I was thinking about turn value bet as well, but I was thinking that like betting turn and river is probably going to be somewhat thin, so it probably makes sense more to just check back here. Oh well, not loving the situation on the top left, but I think we have to call it here with the top best possible. Jack X. Well, luckily he had the same hand. And also not the queen when the flush draw, straight draw completed. And this is just going to be, I think betting river is probably going to be a bit too thin. So it's reasonable to try to value bet this, but yeah, I think I will still take the safe option. Maybe it's a bit nitty even. I mean, we can bet small and probably raise to fold to raise. On the top bottom left, let's go for raise. We are the biggest stack, so of course we are so close to each other that it doesn't actually matter that much, but okay. I think I go for a limp shove here. We can open shove, but the issue is that, well, obviously if he goes, we are going to be screwed. But by limp shoving, we at least get a bit better risk reward for it. King 9 suited. I think I would shove a bit shorter stack depth, but let's fold that one. It's reasonable shove here as well, but well, ace king is obviously going to be, well, we got the punishment here. We lend donk bets, third event check. I tried to steal the river, but we have to fold. He might have the 7 or this flush, but it's just that on the long run it tends to be almost free roll to try that, because so few people are going for check raised here on those spots. But of course, if you expect the opponent will be trying to take the pot down, then it becomes different story. We have weakest possible kicker here, but when there is the flush draw, I usually prefer to call when I have the spade with the king and raise mainly when I don't. So let's go for the raise here. Oh, we lost that ace king, I suppose. Okay. Well, I am the smallest stacked here, and ace 10 is simply a bit too strong to be folded. Of course, when he makes it 3x, he might have stronger range, but I don't really have any read about it. It might be his standard sizing as well. Oh well. Not winning with the ace king and then running into bigger ace. Nasty ending for that game. Let's go for shove here. This is one of the most reasonable bluff shove hands overall, in a way that it has a lot of equity against non-paired hands. If he is trapping those. This hype guy is quite aggressive, so I will go for limp trapped here. But he doesn't bite. Yeah, we could actually check raise here. But he doesn't like the betting option, it seems. And Jack 7 is pretty much the bottom of my Jack offsuit hand, as I would shove as default. And one nasty board run here, obviously just checking. I see that flop turn goes check, and let's hope he has something weaker. And a7 is going to be too strong against the small blind. If the bottom shoves, I have to fold, but if he min raises, this is pretty reasonable to shove, but again, when that happens, we have to fold. Well, luckily I didn't get the shoving spot. Well, I would have actually won, so from EV point it would have been bad, but now we are, of course, as middle stack in kind of a... on the top right would have snap called, of course, against this guy, but once he calls... I think suited ace we should be shoving still, but it's not going to be hugely profitable anyway, but should be somewhat profitable. Ace, king, well, he might be bluffing with busted counterfeited 7x or flush draw, but obviously we can't really call it here. I suppose it would be reasonable raise hand as bluff, but well, pocket 7's not the greatest spot because his range as middle stack is going to be relatively tight, but at the same time we are smaller stack, so phew, that was scary. Well, I was planning to bluff shove the river, but once the 10 comes, I can't really try to get AX to fold anymore. I was limp calling pre-flop here, but I will just give up here now if he bets. Of course, I might actually win still. Oh, he had weaker queen X. That will be shoving hand. Pocket queens. Five queen. This is actually quite close, but I think it's not quite strong enough. Suited I would definitely call. Then jack. We are not that much ahead of the bottom, so I will go for. Again, this is absolutely bottom of my shoving range in that stack situation. This is actually a spot where I think pocket sevens is going to be folding hand. That is actually a hand that we would probably want to be. This is quite nice bluffing hand in my opinion, because we don't have huge amount of equity, so we can still bet fold, but we still have somewhat potential. I can actually take picture of that. Spot. How does it look? I think it's fold, but when you are not completely sure, it's good time to check it later. Well, 7-6, a smaller stack, and 7 big blind. Definitely shoving here, king jack. He's still going to be, and we have to be value betting here, and I'm going to bet call. Oh well. Wee. Nice river. He had 1 chip remaining. Well, in practice, this guy is usually going to fold to shove almost always. Well, not always, but yeah, I think I would just go for shove. In theory, you can. I think you can actually kind of call reasonably, not wide, but it's quite awkward spot to be calling much at all, because dropping out at that situation is going to be just so disastrous if the button wins the wall pot. And king 8 shooter, we can limp. I will be calling if he shoves, but and 5-6 shooter, I will be shoving against this guy. And let's size it a bit bigger so we can shove the river if he calls. Well, pretty much 9-10 is the only hand that is beating us, and he might have taken other line with it anyway. That was pretty loose call. So this guy actually, did he min raise or raise fold? I suppose he did. That's quite surprising. 10 big blind stack and he 2.5x folds. So miracle flop 3-3-8. Almost. Well, I kind of have to min raise here, but the awkward side is that it's not really strong enough to min raise call against the hype guy. But I think even though he has been really aggro, at the same time I don't really want to shove 20 big blinds. Well, I think maybe it's fine to shove. Let's hope that the big blind doesn't wake up. Doesn't wake up. Well, on the bottom left we can fold if the will then continues now. Flush draw completed, and we didn't have that strong of ace in the first place. Well, in the 50 euro, this is pretty nice hands to call, and we flopped trips. So So this is sports that we could be check raising with quite a decent amount of bluffs, so I think we want to go for it. When we have the trips most of the time. And then just shove and hope we don't run into some sort of nasty setup. Oh, we actually didn't quite shove. Like tiny bit of tiny bit of space for a fold. I don't know. I suppose I clicked the call in, but maybe it took like wheel spin, so it decreases the sizing tiny bit. Well, king 5 I would sometimes open, but I think this, well, from what I have followed, I think this Mary Annie is very passive guy. I think that Beat It Bozo guy is more of aggro type of fellow. I think we can bet fold this one. We don't have much equity, but still some. And Jack is kind of nice blocker. Also, we don't have block the spade, which is the good thing here. So I think this is quite reasonable bluff combo. And what the hell? I'm like 100% sure that I clicked the raise button here. Well, maybe I didn't. Yep. Yeah, probably my mouse again didn't take the click or something. Open folding pocket aces, that's the way to do it. I really need to buy that new mouse. Oh well. Limping with that stack depth. But yeah, I then shooted his hands that I think I kind of have to shove. It's even if he's trapping, but he doesn't have the aces, I still have decent equity. Because if he's trapping, he's mainly having hand like that. This guy calls with ace 5 and wins the pot. Nice. Well, yeah, it's one of those situations that I really wasn't surprised that he was trapping, but I mean, can you really do much else than shove anyway? Because how sure you can be that he is trapping and not doing it with something else? And if you are scared enough that you don't shove ace 10 suited, then yeah, it's kind of easy to go too passive at the same time if you start like completing that hand and so on. And here we have the flush, so we need to size it so that we could shove the river. No. I think he's not going to fold that often with the queen either, and if he doesn't have queen, he has weaker than queen, then it probably doesn't matter too much what the sizing is going to be. It seems like I need to take €10 game. 8-9 suited, unfortunately have to fold if he shoves, also because he's probably passive. Once he limps we could shove, but I think I prefer checking overall. same hand on the both tables. This is quite nice hand to call because we are somewhat protected on some board runs. Not great spot if he continues betting, but passive villain betting that sort of flop. I would kind of want to fold here. We could also call and fold if he bets third time. That's the standard line, I suppose. Well, king is nice because if he had like queen 9, he hopefully check back now and we can check it. Oh yeah, well, there is some hope that we could be splitting, but yeah, I think we can't call anyway. I don't know, maybe we could have folded that turn, but is 3, I will be 3 betting here and hopefully too much to ask. Win that damn 50 euro. Well, shoving might be better against this guy because he's passive, but yeah, I will be betting here anyway. There is, or at least should be, decent chance that he would check shove the 8x anyway, so I will be bet calling here. Such a drawy board. Well, let's hope that he stays passive and we can use that as limping hand. Well, there is a lot of busted draws, but obviously betting doesn't make any sense. And he was bluffing this time. Well, pretty nice flop overall, considering the sort of hand we have. I have to call that. Get nines here. Well, yeah, it's suited, but I don't know. It's not horrible to fold on it. Well, shoving might be plus EV against that. That will then. At least I have total garbage all the time that he's limping. Well, if he limps, I will be shoving this one. Not winning that. I think 10-5, even though it's crappy hand, I have to call. Call with the pot odds I have. Deuce, ace, thank you. Min raising, well, I will be shoving it here. It's not too horrible, at least. Oh well. Not destined to win that one, it seems. Just that when you don't win those games, it's tough to make. Tough to make much profit in these games. Well, somewhat on the plus side currently. But yeah, that 50 euros really, when the button was limping that pocket kings as trap and I shoved the ace 10 and big blind as middle stack. Snap called that ace 5, that was just absolutely horrible play from the will length here. So yeah, that guy got rewarded on that game. Top 2, obviously boards that flop that can develop in a lot of nasty ways. In here we can check or bet small, it's fine either way. And let's just call it here. We can still fold. Of course he might have the flush or set of eights is possible as well, but he might be semi-bluffing sometimes or having like weaker ace 8, maybe some playing AX. So yeah, I think I have to call here. There is just too much chance that he's value betting weaker, and the pot odds are great, but it's not that great situation. Well, he had the same hand. Well, I'm pretty happy with that outcome. And obviously have to stack off here. Button versus big blind. Very busy looking 3-bet sizing at least, if nothing else. And let's see, bet here. Of course it's nasty if he happens to check raise and we get the straight, but absolute hand strength increases, but relative is somewhat decreasing. Okay, well, he has a lot more flushes here, so I'm not trying to bluff here. If he had checked from that sizing, I wouldn't be surprised if he actually had straight flush 700. We got the bonus step, I suppose. In the top right, we are a bit too deep to be shoving, so let's call mainly asset mining. Mainly asset mining. And on the top left, we actually improve to open-ended straight draw. Oh well. Yeah, I think I just give up that one. I think it's going to be tough to get like Jack X type of hands to fold here. And pretty weird looking, like maybe some sort of Ace-8 for value, but yeah, I can't really call at least. That would be pretty absurd. And yeah, let's try to barrel here. We don't have much showdown value, but pretty decent. Decent draw, 440 to call. So yeah, we can't. I think we can't quite call that one. Yeah, we are just going to hit pretty rarely, and he might have like Ace-5 sometimes. Sometimes already here, or 5-6 is possible also. These are kind of tricky. We can set mine, but these can be quite easily minus EV somewhat, even with these stack depths. Sometimes this guy might 3-bet, so him completing is not really a bad thing for our set mining, because even against single opponent, most of the time we can't continue against C-bet with pocket deuces. The main issue does just tend to be that even when we hit this set, button range is going to be so wide that it's going to be tough to get enough. Enough value. And a nasty setup here. Pocket queens with 1.5 or one big blind behind. Well, chip and a chair. Top set. So we probably win that one. So it's not like, well, from these positions they shouldn't really have straight draws either. Much at least. Well, pretty decent open shoving hand. Ace-9 we could use as 3-bet fold. But yeah, getting that berry picking to end is pretty nice. Actually, last couple of days, my fingers have started to feel more or less normal. I mean, those buses have so many spikes that you are going to get like dozen hits from those every day you are picking. And when it was like over a week of or almost 2 weeks of berry picking, it has been quite spiky, so to say. Well, this time we actually have value hand to 3-bet, and really bad flop against the button range on the bottom right. And I don't really want to check raise here. There is quite a lot of possibilities that he's going to shove over my raise, and I don't really want to stack off here. But now we have the pair as well, so some showdown value, so can't really be folding. He can easily have like some king 10 bigger flush draws. And even if we are behind, we have enough equity overall. This is kind of interesting. Yeah, I think we want to check here to have some of the, because if he has strong queen X, he's probably value shoving, but unfortunately he had weak one. And just check shoving here with the queen 10. And we hit the set. Well, Ville had huge amount of equity here. Kind of funny that I have got through those couple shoves with few big blinds. It's pretty rare that they go through. This is kind of interesting flop because we have the best hand extremely often. So we can check behind, but we can also value bet small. And if he check raises like 400, 450, I will be bet calling and going from here. I think checking and betting on that specific board are both fine, because the chances that he has hit something better is pretty small overall. And not going to shove that 9-3. I suppose these tables start to be on every kind of everywhere. Now I had the replayer active also. 7-5 we can try to limp and limp step. King Jack is actually kind of decent in a way, that at least better King Jack, King X's he would probably raise on the preflop, but we don't have any equity here. If I had 5-4, I would barrel here second time, but let's just give up that one. Well, ace jack is not. For that stack depth, at least. And he finds the fucking treat here. Of course. I think I will go for 3-bet here this time. Downside is if we face 4-bet, we have to fold. But if that happens, they most of the time have better hand, so not such a huge problem. Queen 7 again. This is actually hands that we could also just limp, but it's hands that we can go either way. Queen 10 I would sometimes 3-bet, but this villain is 4xing, so not going to do anything crazy here. And I was planning to limp call, but 5 big blind. Wow. That's one manly sizing, especially without antes. Well, I suppose it's just so expensive to call and see the flop for that price. Like 4 big blind I would have still called, but I think I will check back here. It's kind of a nice hand to be. If we want to check some jack X's here for pot control. And raising doesn't really make any sense. Calling is only option. And spade is kind of nasty overall. And I don't think we can value bet here. We only have, there is 3 higher flushes against 2 people. And also especially small blind. Yeah, I think we just have to check back here. It's too thin to, and actually, yeah. Well, yeah, I think I calculated that. Yeah, 3 higher flushes. I think there was. Well, the big blind had the same straight, and small blind was bluffing here. Let's try to bluff on the upper right. We don't have any pair either, so pretty much 0 showdown value with that hand. And now we have 7 games running, so no need to register anymore. Well, 4 big blind open, but we still have a pretty deep stack and suited ace from position. Well, that was nice turn. We don't need to worry about. We don't need to worry about our kicker anymore. Well, now we lose to ace 9, but I think shoving is still going to be the probably best option. On the top right, we could check back. We are blocking so much of the hands from the will lane. And we got him to bet. raising doesn't really make any sense here, especially with us having full house, so there's pretty much no bad river cards. And now he's probably going to be folding, but well, let's just go for open shove. It's somewhat plus EV, but not heavily so. Well, went for small raised here. We have polarized. We can make polarized small raise. Small raise ranged here. Have some nutty hands and some weaker hands, and 9-8 is just too strong of hand. And we have the stack of tier, which we have like a bit over one pot size remaining, so just have to stack off. And well, I don't really know about this one. Well, let's shove. Suppose we can deny some equity and not get into awkward situation that do we want to bluff catch or not. Check, shove. Okay. Well, let's just go for. It's clearly plus EV in the NAS at least. And we have a lot of action here, so probably a bit less talking for some time now. Really small sizing, but well, we have really crappy hand as well overall. So I suppose folding is fine. 6-8 suited running into pocket 8. Nice. So we have massive 2 people watching, at least according to my statistics. Well, I mean, betting, I suppose we can go probably either weight here. is the sort of issue that there's not huge amount of draws, and 6-4 actually completed here as well. So and I don't know if we could try to get in value against AX or King X. On the bottom, 50 euro top right, we have showdown value with the A high, so there is no need to be semi-bluffing. And pretty bad flop on the bottom right. And on the outside table in the heads up we run into. Let's go for bluff here. Run into nut setup with the king jack versus ace king. Only 10 big blind deep, so not really anything to say about that one. Well, of course king high is kind of high on our range overall on the top left, but at the same time it's such a dry flop. You can call, I don't think it's bad necessarily, but how many bluffs will Lane will have? Of course he might have its limp pot, so some gut shots are definitely plausible here. Well, let's just believe this time. Well, maybe we beat some pocket sixes or something. And once again, one of these weirdo plays, but we only have bottom pair, so can't really be calling. 10-9 shooter, we could be open shoving, of course, but I usually don't want to do too much of that stuff if we have playable hand overall. But like if you have a small pocket pair, for example, then it's nice to just shove it and make the line that is always going to be plus EV, and with the hand that doesn't really play post-up well. Pocket sevens is too strong to be folded, and yeah, I'm just going to shove here. If the big blind was also 2000 deep, I think we could also just call and fold if he shoves, but well, I would have lost against him as well, but so nasty. Big blind waking up with better hand. Well, it happens, but nasty still. I think it's best possibility for probably to get action if we shove here on the turn. Overall, he might think that we try to bluff with and call some a high or something. Bluff with some straight draw busted on the turn. Unfortunately, he wasn't a bit deeper, so I could have perhaps gone for that. This guy makes those shoves, so I think I would usually go for limp shove here, check shove, but I think against him I will prefer betting myself, because if he shoves it's kind of awkward. Awkward to be calling. And on the top right we have quite clear value bet spot. And 8-6, I think it's 4 big blind in the NAS, so yeah, I will be folding. And should we value shove on the... There are still a lot of busted draws. Yeah, I think I will go for value shove. Yep. Well, just a lot of stupid mistakes. Well, at least luck it here. Folding trips on the bottom left. Folding trips and folding aces, that's the way. That's the way to do it. Well, I think I will quit after these games for this session. Ace queen, I will go for 3-bet call. Queen 9 is strong enough. And we miss the flop. I think I will just check back here. Don't really want to be bet calling or bet folding, and we have decent showdown value. So, of course, the downside is that if he bets now, it's going to be. But against that sizing, we can't really fold. Well. Suppose I have to fold here. And flopping the flush, so definitely betting here and shoving river unless it's hard. Yep. Yeah. Well, luckily, it probably didn't matter that much that I folded that. Well, I might have survived that hand, I suppose, if I had not timed out from the tricks earlier. But that would have been an expensive hand anyway. If looking for something positive from that stupid mistake. I don't really like his line overall. I mean, when you have those monotone flops and pretty deep stacks, I just think that you kind of have to bet with the top set here. It's just a huge disaster overall if you check and fourth heart comes here and you basically have bluff catcher at that point. Unless you improve the full house. And I would have shoved the ace 10, but when that guy shoves, I have to fold. As sort of bit exploitative line. I think shoving 6-5 is fine. Pocket fours is really close here. I think it's. I would question it's pocket fours or fives, the bottom that we should be calling. Well, unfortunately he has the bigger. Yeah, that's something that we could check later. I was planning to check raise, but now that he min bets and gives me kind of absurd odds to just call for drawing that, then let's take the almost free offer. Well, I think we still want to bet here. If he has the ace, then he has it. Yeah, I have probably sucked out like 1 or 2 times with weaker ace myself, but from the other direction it has been once again quite numerous times, or at least have that feeling. Well, Jack 10 is going to be plus EV. Especially with antes. Well, even with these some stupid mistakes, timing outs mainly, maybe that pocket force was, I think, well, I don't know. It's close, we can check that. I'm pretty surprised if like pocket sixes or fives are fold. Pocket threes are pretty surely fold, I would say. But anyway, we are still somewhat on the profit side. Well, there was that 25 euro, and this guy min raises again, kind of nice hand to shove, but I don't know how much he's folding anymore at that point. So let's take the safe option. And ace 3 is of course call against the small blind. Well, I have actually got 45. Pocket deuces, I think we can fold this one. In the MTT environment, it's probably going to be ISO shove, but I'm not going to shove crappy offsuit ace, especially in that spot. And on the top left, that is again a line that doesn't really make any sense overall. Like even if you have flush draw, go for check raise. Donk betting for exploit is not really something to do. But that's one of those, I suppose, standard lines of these fizzy players. 4. Thank you. And also, yeah, he had the 4 of clubs, so he actually had 3 outs here. But that's also like one side of the luck, that Yeah, I think with the 9 big or 10 big blinds, I will just ship it here. Like even if you are in the tracked side, that's like one part of the luck that you can't really track that much. That when other people collide and those type of situations happens, a lot of equity will change for you as well. Hopefully we wait. Deuce is nice card. And that's also the important part, that if you use limping in the heads up part especially, or in the small blind versus big blind situations, that you have some balance in the limping range. That's actually something that I don't like. If you are deeper stacked, I don't often balance myself that much of the limping range. But of course, if you have read about the opponent, that's different story. But I just think that it's all often that, like when you are against unknown players, they tend to be more on the passive side. So balancing is not going to be that important overall. I could actually play through these flip things I have here. Quite a lot of these. Can I make this smaller? But yeah, I have had quite a few stupid timeouts on this season. Not something you want to be doing. And we are dominated, unfortunately, here. With the bronze flip, we need to get like zillion flip wins that we get into decent prices. Yeah, that was split. And of course it stays on the river. Well, yeah, I'm not going to flip these more than for this one, because those other games ended. But anyway, we still, even without with all the zillion stupid timeout mistakes, well, not zillion, but maybe like, well, there was like 3 timeout from the open folded pocket aces, then I folded that trips. There was probably some other timeout as well. So yeah, even with those things, I still got some profit. Was €85. So there was, I suppose, some of those. €25 bonus, and also €20 from the bonus step opened. So in practice, well, the bonus step was actually on the yesterday. So yeah, well, €60 from the actual games, pre-rake back. But anyway, that's for today. Next stream probably might be on the Monday. Actually, I'm planning to play quite frequently now that I have time. But anyway, thanks for watching, and yeah, hopefully next time I have to remember to buy that new mouse and not get stupid things happen because the mouse is malfunctioning. But yeah, thanks for now and bye.